Welcome, everybody. I want to welcome you to our regularly scheduled council meeting, Sueur City Council meeting, March 22, 2021. At this time, I'd like to call our meeting to order, and we will do so at the beginning with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag,
of the United States of America,
and to the republic,
for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. At this time, I will open up the floor to anybody who wants to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda. You've all had time to look at it.
This is Noel Krugman. I so move.
Councilmember Sullivan, thank you.
Schlueter, second.
We have a second. I'm sorry, who was that?
Schlueter.
Councilmember Schlueter, thank you very much. At this time, I'll turn it over to Administrator Krugel to take the roll.
Thank you, Mayor Kirby. Councilmember Krogman.
Aye.
Councilmember Lozey.
Aye.
Councilmember Mahoney.
Aye.
Councilmember Schlueter.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan is absent tonight. Councilmember Swanberg.
Aye.
And Mayor Kirby.
Aye. Moving on, at this time, we're going to have a presentation. This will be for the 2020 Firefighter of the Year Award. I'd like to have Administrator Krugel give us a little information on this, or introduction, if you would.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kirby. We have Fire Chief Wenich here tonight to talk a little bit about the 2020 Firefighter of the Year award winner, Aaron Meyer, and I'll hand it off to him.
Yeah, thank you, council members, Mayor Kirby. I'll just give you a quick kind of rundown on how the Firefighter of the Year all works and started. It started in 1988. You must be on the department at least 3 years to receive the award based on meetings and drill attendance, fire calls, extra schooling, training, state schools, jobs within the fire department, committees, and overall participation and cooperation. And this year we awarded it to Aaron Meyer, who made all of our drills and meetings, 70% of the fire calls. He went to Mankato State Fire School in March. He does the small engines on the department, and he was on the taker committee, and his overall participation and cooperation has been great. So I'd like to thank Aaron Meyer on behalf of the fire department and everybody. Outstanding job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Wenich. I appreciate the background on this award, and also want to extend our congratulations to firefighter Aaron Meyer. Congratulations on 2020 Firefighter of the Year. So for that award, we tip our hats to you. Anybody else want to add anything? If not, again, we want to thank you and the department, and congratulations.
Yep, thank you. Have a good night.
Moving on, the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and have been made available to the City Council at least 2 days in advance of the meeting. The items will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the agenda and considered in normal sequence. At this time, we'll let City Administrator Krugel kind of review these consent agenda items for us.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kirby, members of the council. The first item we have is the City Council minutes from March 8th, 2021. Second is the disbursement approvals through March 22nd. A few to note there, we did have the payment, bond payment, the 2010 medical facility bond, totaling $214,342.21 And what that is a conduit financing bond that the medical facility financed through the city, and they pay for 100% of that, so we recoup that cost. And that's something that a city can do to help finance changes in for businesses in town, in particular the hospital for this one. We did have some disbursements to Bolton and Menk for the Main Street project and the water system improvements project. We had the Kubota RTVs that were approved at a previous city council meeting. And I believe we did take the delivery of those. We did order that plow truck chassis and the fire tanker chassis. And then as well, we had a lease payment to Kinetic Leasing for that 2020 Kenworth Vector truck for the wastewater department. Total disbursements this time around, $1,171,641.64. Then we also had a cogeneration annual report. We're required to file this and approve this every year. This is related to solar and potentially wind. We don't have any wind customers, but we do have a handful of solar customers. D5D, the Sueur Dog Park, there's an application from the Friends of the Sueur Dog Park to adopt that dog park. That would be approved if the consent agenda is approved. We have a project reimbursement resolution. So for some of these chassis purchases that we have, what this basically tells us that we can do with this equipment certificate is reimburse ourselves for these expenses. It's a formality that we have to do in order for it to be done per state statute. This group called our consent agenda item F, the Sueur County Governmental Officials Association appointment. This is somewhat new to us group, and Councilmember Schlueter is being appointed to represent the city of Sueur. There will be information likely sent out, as you've maybe seen in your email, to attend these things, and generally they are in person and they go to different communities. One thing I will make a note is if you do attend, just try to be conscious of open meeting law and when you're with other council members. We have a 5G is park grant resolutions. This is related to some of those park priority projects that we've identified, and we're going to apply for some grant funding for those. And finally, 5H is well number 8, that PFA application resolution. And what that does is it gives us a financing option to finance that well number 8 that's going to go in the future here at the intersection off of Kingsway, right by the dog park. So pretty hefty consent agenda tonight. But if there are any questions, please let me know.
Jasper, this is Newell. I think you were going to mention WSB and the Wetlands Bank.
Oh, yeah, yep. So there is, thank you for that reminder, Councilmember Krogman. There is a project that's ongoing related to the former wastewater treatment ponds that you see when you're driving on 169. What we're doing is we're evaluating the potential to enroll those into wetland bank credits. And what that means is that we would do some restoration of that area, and then in turn we would be able to sell those credits to agencies that maybe are disturbing wetlands somewhere, and we would be able to make a profit on that. So there will be a presentation likely this summer about that project, just to give a formal update to City Council. But it's a long-term project. We're talking about probably around 8 to 10 years before it's fully completed. So it's something that we're working on, trying to find the highest and best use and for that area. And then also trying to generate some income and revenue for the city.
Thank you for bringing that up, Councilmember Krogman. That's good to know about that project. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Administrator Krugel to take a roll.
I'm
sorry. Entertain a motion. We'll entertain a motion. Thank you.
Councilman Lozey, so moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Lozey. Do we have that seconded?
Schlueter second.
I heard Mahoney first, so thank you, Councilmember Mahoney. With that said, any other questions or comments before we take a roll? Administrator Krugel, please.
Thank you, Mayor Kirby. Councilmember Krogman,
Aye.
Councilmember Lozey,
Aye.
Councilmember Mahoney,
Aye.
Councilmember Schleter,
Aye.
Councilmember Swanberg,
Aye.
and Mayor Kirby.
Aye.
Thank you.
Public comments. Provides an opportunity for the public to address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Persons wishing to make comments must sign up in advance of the meeting on the sheet or on the website as provided. Lost my spot here. You will have a time of 5 minutes to comment. A total of public comment period shall last 30 minutes for a non-item and 30 minutes per agenda item. Disruptive and disorderly behavior will not be tolerated. Administrator Krugel, do we have anybody who wish to share any comments with us?
Mayor Kirby, I have had nobody sign up in advance of the meeting, and I don't see anybody raising their hand to participate in public comment at the moment.
Okay, we'll just wait another moment or two and we'll move on.
All right, it doesn't appear anybody's raising their hand.
Okay, very good. We'll move on to the regular agenda if we could, please. Item 1MG, composite elevated water tower. At this time, we're going to hear, I'll let Administrator Krugel introduce our city engineer, Mr. Bienfang.
Thank you, Mayor Kirby. Yes, tonight we have received bids for our 1 million gallon composite elevated water tower. We have engineer Corey Bienfang here, along with Public Services Director Rich Kachera to go over some of these things. Bids did come in higher than what the engineer's estimate was, but we did an analysis to kind of look at a bunch of different factors to see what the course of action is that we're recommending. So with that, I'll turn it over to City Engineer Bienfang, and he can take it from here.
All right, thank you, Jasper. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. So I thought it'd be good just to touch base and kind of recap the timeline of how we got here. Just looking back here a couple of years now, and kind of emphasizing when the immediate planning for the delivery of this tower first started. So just a capture here on the timeline. So the initial, really, I would say, study and emphasis on the water system overall, which was certainly a connection to a new water tower. The recommendation for started back in the summer of 2019, and that was really with the approval to proceed with a comprehensive water system plan. The city of Sueur has had a number of these. The last one was done in 2010, and so it's just an acknowledgement that an upgrade to that, another decade later, made some sense. And that plan then took just about a year to complete, with it being approved then that following May in 2020. So we had a draft plan presentation, and then the acceptance of that on May 26, 2020. And within that water plan was a acknowledgement and a recommendation that there was there's a storage need as far as elevated water tower. There's a deficiency in the amount of water being stored in the city of Sueur. And that recommendation and that approved plan really led into the CIP and the CEP, which documented the intent to move forward then with final design for a new tower. And that final design started about a month later in June of 2020. And then it took us, almost a year here to fully deliver that, a little bit less. Once that final design started, we had an update just at the turn of the new year here, which this council would have, hopefully remember and recall. And then we approved in late January the final plans and authorizing us to bid. We opened those bids or received those bids and opened them in the early part of March here, about 3 weeks ago now. And then we find ourselves tonight at the end of March to consider accepting those bids and awarding the contract. So just about 2 years to get here. If you don't mind, Jasper. But as an interesting thing in regards to this tower replacement is this has been in documented form for almost 2 decades now, starting first officially in that 2010 water system study, an acknowledgement of the lack of storage for the city of Sueur starting in 2010. It was repeated again in that 2020 study. Then it's another a continual reminder in our Department of Health yearly inspections. We looked back and found in print an acknowledgement of that you know, diminished storage or deficient storage based on recommended levels, you know, being in writing at least since 2014. So almost seven years of that now being noted in each inspection report, that annual report. So I think what we're trying to capture here is this has been a project that's been talked about and you know, it's been under consideration here for many years. And the emphasis on the low tower, and that is one of 3 towers that we have within the city. We have 3 pressure zones. For those that aren't familiar, we have a low, a middle, and a high. And what's unique about the low zone is first, just the low zone itself accounts for about 56% of our daily water that's sold or that's distributed, correlating to an average day demand of about 600,000 gallons. And a max day demand, that's your maximum water use in a day of just over 1 million. But what makes the low zone then unique is this is also the high zone feeders. So all the water that goes to the high zone, which the high zone is the highway Highway 169 tower in that zone up where Cambria is, and then some of those industries up there, residential users on Doppy. All of the water for the high zone goes through the low zone tower. And so if you add in then the low and the high zone, that's encompasses almost 93% of our daily water. And that average day demand is then a little over 1 million, and the maximum day then is just short of 2 million. So the low zone has obviously a critical, it encompasses a very critical amount of our water use and our water sold each day. Don't mind, Jasper. So then the criticalness of a water tower is it's balancing the amount of water that you can produce and pump, and being able to account for those high demands or those daily draws typically found during the working day. City of Sueur has a lot of industry captured there in the lower left. You can see our top 10 users. Agri-Pier there is our greatest user. They are out of the low zone. And the significance there, as you can see, a singular user of industrial like Agri-Pier will actually use more water than our low zone tower can store today. So our existing low zone tower is a 500,000 gallon, a 500,000 gallon tower, and just on every single day, they account for more water than that tower can store. And the significance of that is a tower is that equalization. Is meant to provide in those high use periods of time, that high use period of the day, that tower then is able to equalize or provide for when the treatment and the pumping can't keep up. And you see there in that graph. So over the evening hours, the demand is down, the towers are filling. During the peak, the peak time of day, those towers then are draining because the treatment and the pumping can't keep up. But then on the very far right there, you see that equalization is just a small sliver of what that tower is intended for. You have a fire draw, and then you have your emergency. And so just on the low zone tower, just to support the daily demand, we're short on the fire and we're short on the emergency because that tower is draining dry every single day. So that's the significance when we're talking about shortage of storage. That's what we're trying to capture and plan and work to resolve. Another piece here is just a clipping. This was done, just about 5 months ago now. It's late in the year, towards the fall, is when these Minnesota Department of Health studies. This was the last one done in 2020, and you can see there is a snippet water storage. The average daily water usage greatly exceeds the guidelines of providing a minimum of 1 day water storage capacity. So it is recommended that a study be conducted, which we have evidence of, and to assess possible need for increased water storage. So this is that report that we've been receiving with this same paragraph for about 7 years now. If you don't mind, Jasper. So then the other thing, to try to, put in perspective here, the planning and really solidify the need from an elevated storage standpoint, is in the 2020 master plan. There was an emphasis, and there is a good deal of work to identify and document the 2020 period, which is what we would call the current day water need, the current water system. And that's captured there on the table on the right, and you'll see, there's a capturing of the existing storage. So you see there's on the second line from the top, we have our 3 towers. We have the low zone, which is the 500,000, the middle zone, which is the 250,000, and the high zone, which is the 300,000. So you sum those up, and we have just over 1 million gallons of storage, from our existing towers. So you look at just the 2020 planning period. And again, there's a couple different requirements that are recommended for storage, and that's on the lower, on the left there, the lower left. There's 2 different requirement thresholds. One has a little bit of more math to it, and going back to that tower figure, if you can remember, there's really the 3 parts that make it up. It's the equalization, it's the fire, and the emergency. So there's a formula that is based on percentages and just recommended flows that get you the requirement number 1. Realizing that there's a little bit more thought and there's more terminology there, there's a requirement 2, which is very industry accepted, and it's acknowledgement that your average day consumption should not exceed the available storage. So you should have enough storage for your average day. And just looking purely at 2020, if you look at that required recommended storage volume for the requirement 2, we have an average day demand of 1.2. So just 1.2 minus our 105, we have a need of 200,000 gallons just in 2020. And then understanding that water systems, these are our planning. These are, it's a intent to not only serve the current, but also be mindful of future need and future planning. The water system plan put emphasis on 2040. I'm looking out 20 years from now, and you can see there that water storage recommendation doubles. So, identifying that as a system, we're short 400,000 gallons if you look at that same requirement number 2. And the bulk of that shortage is in the low zone, almost all of it, to be honest. Looking at 2040, we acknowledge a high zone deficiency that wasn't, existing in the 2020. But again, tying those together, realizing that the high zone is fed through the low zone. So really just trying to solidify the, tower life of the one we're proposing is 70, 80 years. And so being mindful of that projection out, and realizing that not only is it a current storage, concern or deficiency, but also looking out at that future growth as well. And then also solidifying, how we settled on a 1 million gallon tower. It wasn't, just a number that we pulled from nowhere. They're really confirming, 500,000 is existing, plus that 400,000 gets you that 1 million gallon. Just trying to put perspective, I guess, to the reason for the recommendation. So if you don't mind, Jasper. So as Jasper noted, we'll get into the bid amounts here in just a little bit, but we did have bids that came in higher than estimated. The estimation, the estimated price was what was built into the CIP. That was what was built into the water utility rate study that we reviewed just a meeting ago. And so based on that, we went back and looked at the water fund. We looked at what this increase in bid, an increase in project cost ultimately would do on those projections. And what we found is that the annual rate increase went from a recommended 2% to a 3%. And that would start in year 2022, which you can see effective here on this updated table. This should be very familiar, the water fund analysis. It's I guess in a way, documenting the power of having that utility rate study and having these spreadsheets done is we can very quickly remodel and forecast those things out. So I guess it's speaking of the power of having this tool available to us now. But based on that, then that about 1% increase, we're able then to calculate the impact to the average residential customer, and we are forecasting about $1.60 per month for the average residential customer. The really important piece to this, though, is to understand that this is keeping all of the CIP CEP static as is currently adopted and proposed. So this would be no change to project timing, no change to identified projects as far as potentially, postponing or delaying. This is just literally adding on the added tower costs. So one flexibility that we have as we assess rates on an annual basis, as we look at CIP CEPs, is we have ability to adjust and to manipulate, whether it be to postpone a project or maybe reduce a project scope. So we have ways to keep that increase static and not have the 1% or not have the $1.60, but for sake of just comparables, we left everything the same and just bumped up the tower cost. So then one of the pieces, always when you are, considering a project, we talk about this in feasibility reports for street projects, and when you, start to actually, open bids and really look at the review of them, it's always a basis of you come back and is this project financially feasible? So working with Shannon and David Drown, we prepared a bond schedule, so a general obligation bond to help support the water fund and the affording of this project. We're proposing to finance this competitively with a municipal bond. We've got an interest rate estimated about 1.6% interest. We do hope and anticipate that interest would actually be less, but that's an estimated projection at this time. So we believe the project, and we've determined the project to be financially feasible. One of the pieces that we've had some feedback on, and we've done some investigation, and it's very difficult to predict with any sort of certainty is what does a postponing mean? What does a postponing of the award? What is a postponing of the project? And really, I think in all fairness, it has an unknown effect. It's obviously, if any of us could predict the future, we'd have a lot more control. But with the inability to do that, it's just an acknowledgement that there's most likely to be a change of construction cost and likely a change of financing. Don't mind, Jasper. So then getting into the bids here, and all this information is consistent to the write-up that you found in your packets. But we received 4 bids. We opened bids on March 4th, and we received 4 bids from reputable contractors. So we're recommending and we're accepting of those 4 bids. We felt those to be competitive and consistent with the contract documents. We had a I guess a decent range for 4 bidders. We felt like 4 bidders was good competition and good attractiveness for a project in Sueur and a project of this type. We had a low bid from Landmark Structures of $4.3 million, a decent spread then to the second low bidder. They're a Phoenix Structure at 4.6, and then we had the other 2 there over $5 million, McDermott and Caldwell Tanks. Within the base bid, then we had the ability to consider 2 alternatives. So either in conjunction with the base bid separately, or none altogether. And those 2 tank alternates was for alternate number 1 was tank lighting to provide a full circumference tower. Lighting that's similar to what you see up on Highway 169, and that low bid was received from Landmark at the $117,000, and then we had a tank painting with that artistic mirror that was captured in your packet that came in, again over estimate there at the $412,000. So based on, review of the base bids, acknowledgement that the base bid did come in over estimate, and then also just looking at each of the alternates singularly, based on what we feel is estimated costs and what were reasonable costs, we are not recommending any bid alternates to be awarded, based on those over estimate, and then understanding that those were meant to be a kind of upgraded value to this project. We're recommending that we do not proceed with those. Then just to be very clear that in the event we didn't accept the artistic mural, within the base bid is the standard city logo. So within that 4.384 million is already accounted for to have the tower painted white, and then have the standard Sueur logo, one on each side. So that is already accounted for. And then the low bidder, again, is a reputable contractor with experience doing these sorts of projects, and their official name is at Landmark Structures, and they're out of Fort Worth, Texas. So you don't mind, Jasper. So one of the things we thought might be powerful to convey tonight is in the last 2-week period, we were able to pull some comparable bid data to support just where the market is, to support the value and the competitiveness of the bids that we're receiving. And so we pulled this together here. The project locations are all over the country. Some might identify as Landmark Structures from Fort Worth, Texas, and all these contractors are from out of state, and they're building towers all over the country. So that is very expected. And so we start there. These are all composite towers, so these are consistent in type for what our project here is in the city of Sueur. The sizes, they'll have variability, starting there at the 500,000 or the 500,000 gallon. So you get understanding those are cheaper, and you would hope to see that they would be. And then you have the 750,000 million, the 750,000 gallon towers. We've got 3 of them there, and you can see one 750,000 million was almost the price of our million. There, that middle one from Massachusetts, and then you get into ours, which are the 1 million gallon. And you can see we actually have the most competitive price for 1 million gallon towers bid here in the last 2 weeks, with ours there on March 4th. You can see a tower from the same contractor in the Midwest bid the same day as ours, in almost a $300,000 increase from our low bid. And then another one there in Kentucky just about 5 days ago now, and almost another 700,000 on top of ours. And then you have the 1.5 million, which is the top end of this range, and would lead you to believe that based on that additional storage of that almost 500,000 gallons more storage. So we thought, I think this solidifies that for the market today, the competitiveness we certainly feel we received in our Sueur bids. So then, what staff is recommending tonight is that City Council accept the bids, which I identified as all 4 bids were received competitively. They all met the conditions of the contract. And then we are recommending to award the contract to the base bid amount based on the resolution in your packet for a 1 million gallon composite elevated water tower to the low bidder of Landmark Structures. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or have any additional discussion.
Thank you, Engineer Beanfang. I appreciate your presentation. It was very enlightening. I have one real quick question. Tell me about the lighting. What was the cost on the lighting on the water tower? And I know we have it out on the one out on the highway, the one over by the dog park. There's no lighting on that one, is there not?
There is not. That's correct. And
the purpose for the lighting, I would imagine, of course, you see the logo, and especially coming in on the highway, I think it's nice to have the lighting on the water tower out there. But is it also for security also?
All the towers will have a security perimeter on it, and I can speak to the intent. I think city staff, we pursued this artistic mural. You're right, the 169 tower has lighting. I think that is because of this location. It's high visibility. The decision at that time was made is, entering the sewer, it was acknowledging that these structures carry the city name and the logo and just acknowledging that, you know, you're getting near our town. The intent with the tank lighting for this tower was strictly to be tied with the mural. We felt like if we were going to proceed and we found affordability in the mural, that it made sense to accent that 24/7, to make sure that that was visible in both day and night, just to give it its, you know, its greatest value and really to give it justice. We fully at city staff anticipated that if the alternates were going to go, they were going to go together. We just wanted to make sure that we were capturing a true cost of each. And that's the reason we kept them separate, Mr. Mayor. But really our intent, the existing tower today is not lit. And so we feel that, you know, by not proceeding with the mural, it was our intent and it's our recommendation then to not proceed with the lighting. The tower is going to have a security fence and a secure gate similar to the other two towers in the community. So I think security is understood still. And then there's a full admittance that lighting could be added after the fact. We just didn't feel that the value for this project at this time was something that we would be recommending.
Mr. Mayor, this is,
question?
may I speak to Cory?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Councilmember.
Just to be clear, the bid from Landmark does, let's be clear, does include demolition of the old tower and complete restoration of the site where the old tower would be.
That is 100% correct, Councilmember Colgan.
Mayor Kirby, I have a couple comments and a question as well.
Yes, go ahead, please.
So first, I really appreciate the historical context for this project being new to the council. It's nice to hear that timeline and see that this plan has been in the works for a while. And just to reiterate that for council, I think sometimes these projects take so long, it's kind of nice to be able to look back to see where it all started. Second, I agree that I don't think the alternative bids should be included. I'm definitely for public displays of art. I just feel that they should be a little bit more approachable and interactive with the public. So having it on a water tower, well, would be really grand, just not very engaging with the public. But I do have a question about water rates. So at the last council, we talked about increasing water rates, but in your presentation that you just gave, we do have some significant water users in the community, which resulted in this, you know, updated requirement. Are those rates reflective of that need in kind of dispersing the cost of this project? I mean, we definitely want to be, you know, business friendly, but at the same time, we do hear from residents that increasing utilities is a concern. So I think we need to be balancing both of those needs.
If I may, this is Administrator Krugel. That's a great question, and it actually, we considered that last year when we did the utility rates and we adopted those. We actually created another tier for our very high users because of that exact reason, that they're a significant reason why we have to pursue this project. So they do pay more when they use more. So they're paying more per gallon or per 1,000 gallons than let's say a residential customer comparably. So they are paying more. That is a recent rate. So it's not something that we've been able to generate revenue on in the past, but moving forward, there is a special rate or an additional tier for those high users. And really it only affects those high users, which is important. So we do have that, and it is something that's fairly new to the city.
Thank you.
Councilman Mahoney, appreciate the question. Any other questions or comments regarding the water tower? If not, we'll move on to the recommended action. The city council accept the bids and award the contract for the base bid amount by approving R 2021-014 for the $1 million or 1 million gallon composite elevated water tower project by Landmark Structures. Is that ILP? So if we have any, if anybody'd like to make a motion?
This is Councilmember Krogman, so move.
Thank you, Councilmember Krogman. We have somebody to second it, please.
This is Schleter, second.
Thank you, Councilmember Schleter. We've had the motion and it's been seconded. I'll turn it over to Administrator Krugel to take a roll, please.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Krogman. We should have any discussion.
I'm sorry. Any questions, comments, concerns? Thank you, Councilmember Krogman. If not, I'll turn it over to Administrator Krugel.
Thank you. Councilmember Krogman,
Aye.
Councilmember Lozey, Councilmember Lozey. Let's see. All right. We'll circle back. Nick, it appears that you are self-muted, but we'll circle back. Councilmember Mahoney,
Aye.
Councilmember Schleter,
Aye.
Councilmember Swanberg,
Aye.
Mayor Kirby.
Aye.
Then I'll circle back to Councilmember Lozey. It does appear that you're still self-muted if you can hear us or hear me. Give him another couple seconds. But if Nick maybe is having some technical difficulties, we do have 5-0, so that motion does pass.
Moving on to agenda item 7B, zoning code amendments, chapter 153. This is a public hearing. Administrator Krugel, please.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, it's not technically a public hearing. It's a regular agenda item. I'll fix that real quick. And what we have tonight is a recommendation from the Planning Commission to make some changes to our Chapter 153, which is our zoning code. As we've developed or adopted a new zoning code, we went through the whole chapter. There are things, and we kind of anticipated this, that we'll have to refine further as we get additional feedback. So we do have the Community Development Director, Samantha DiMaggio, here to go over this. What we're doing tonight is the first reading of the ordinance for the zoning code amendment. You can see there's going to be a lot in the red lines, and Samantha will go over those. But what we're looking for tonight is to waive the first reading of the ordinance, and then direction to bring this back to the April 12th meeting for the second reading. If it is approved at that meeting, it does go into effect 7 days after we publish it in the newspaper, and then that would go into effect at that time. So with that, I'll turn it over to Community Development Director DiMaggio.
Thank you, Jasper. Good evening, Mayor Kirby, members of the council. So as Jasper mentioned, the zoning code was formally adopted by the City Council on August 26, 2019. Since that time, staff have been able to utilize the code and members of the public. And at this time, we are requesting some minor modifications. I appreciate Jasper fixing the public hearing. The public hearing was actually held on March 11th. So these were some slides that I had from there. So I apologize for the confusion. But the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing at their March 11th commission meeting. They did have one member of the public speak out. The member of the public who did speak out was actually talking about the impervious surface. So as we go through tonight, the Planning Commission has formally recommended these changes to Chapter 153. They did want Director Kachira to talk a little bit about the impervious surface maximums and how that can affect our sewer rates and our sewer capacity. So when we get to that portion, we will ask Director Kachira to jump in with us. Next slide, please. So the first set of changes that we came up or that we recognized needed modifications were to the swimming pool. And I know quite a few of you heard from the public last year about the swimming pool issues that we had. Prior to COVID, people putting in swimming pools was not all that common in Sueur. But last year, because of COVID and our public pool being closed, we did have quite a few people who called to put in a pool. One of the issues that I found as a staff person was trying to figure out, well, what is a permanent pool versus a temporary pool? And when do you need a permit? Also, one thing that we talked about, if it's a temporary pool, are you required to do anything? And regardless if it's temporary or permanent, do we have a good application process? So the Planning Commission and I did go through the zoning code and we did make some changes. And you could see the red line version of what we're recommending. We'll start with the definition of a swimming pool. It is going to be an artificial basin with 24 or more inches in depth of water intended for swimming or other recreational use. It can be constructed either above or below ground. It can have concrete, steel, fiberglass. This includes in-ground, above ground, or on-ground pools, hot tubs, portable and non-portable spas, and fixed in place wading pools. So we added those two sections to it. Is the information is red is actually going to be what's changed. We also added the information where it says, for the purposes of this chapter, swimming pools shall be considered accessory structures and must meet all lot coverage. That should say ratios, not rations. Sorry about that. Ratios per the zoning district. So I will update that. So now when we get down to kind of the meat of the swimming pools, what we're talking about is trying to come up with some type of difference between what's a permanent pool and what's a temporary pool and when do you need a license. So we came up with the first definition: any swimming pool containing 24 inches or more in depth of water and less than 5,000 gallons requires a pool permit. So if your pool will hold 24 inches or more of water and less than 5,000, you have to get a pool permit. Building code actually states if it holds 24 or more inches in depth of water and more than 5,000 gallons of water, you actually have to get a building permit. So I wanted to make sure that the public is aware that if you have a larger pool, you have to get a building permit. So any property owner who has not previously been issued a pool permit or a building permit must apply for one to ensure compliance with this code. So I know we're going to get calls from people saying, you know, I put this in last year, I didn't get a permit. Well, you know, we understand that. So if you put one in last year, we would like you to apply for one this year. Once that permit's been issued, no further permitting is required. If you dismantle or store the pool and rebuild it in the same location, we're not going to make you reapply every year. I think it'd be the truth for people who had a permanent pool. Once they put in their permanent pool, that structure would stay there. For some reason, they changed the location of it or the size of it, then we would ask them to come back and get a different pool permit. But I know quite a few people put in permits or pools last year and asked me, do I need a permit? No, last year we weren't. I don't even know how we could have gone out and done a lot of the checks last year because of the COVID regulations. But this year, I definitely think from a staff perspective, and hopefully with your help, this zoning code will make a lot more sense and we should be able to answer things much better than last year. So a new permit is required if the structure is altered in size and or location. So if they get a bigger pool, then maybe that would trigger for them to get a building permit rather than a pool permit. So we wanted to tell them if they're going to change it in size or the location, they have to follow up with the city. Swimming pools shall be permitted in each of the uses, and those that are 24 or more inches in depth of water and less than 5,000 gallons are subject to these standards. So anything that is required to have a pool permit is required to follow these standards. We didn't have to write the building permit because building permit already covers a lot of these things in the building permit. So we could go either way, but this is just for people who have a pool permit that's a zoning permit. So all pools have to be 10 feet away from the property lines. We did not make any changes there. If the yard is already enclosed by a fence meeting the fence code outlined in 153.049, so that is actually our fence code, then a perimeter security fence shall be installed and maintained around the pool. So if it's not already enclosed, then they have to get a perimeter security and fence. So the perimeter security fence needs to be not less than 4 feet in height, not more than 3 inches off the ground, a maximum 3-inch space between the rails, and it must have a self-latching lockable gate. So if they don't already have a yard that has a fence that meets fence code, then they at least have to do these minimum requirements to have a fence. Yards containing hot tubs shall meet these fencing requirements, or they shall have a cover that can be locked when not in use. We did erase number 3. Number 4, we said that actually stayed the same. You have 30 days after the pool is completed to get your perimeter fence in place or your security fence. No construction or fence accessory buildings shall be placed over any easements. That's going to stay the same. We moved the latch and gate up to the other fencing requirements. And we said failure to complete the swimming pool construction project within 12 months from approval of the zoning and building permits, the applicant shall be required to reapply. So there's some pretty big changes, but I think this was good for us. Some of the issues, like I said, we were having was permanent versus temporary. When do you need a full-on permit? And I think some of the changes, all the changes we made are great, and they're going to make much more sense this year when we go looking at the swimming pools. Before we go into fences, does anyone have any questions about the swimming pools? Okay, next page, please. Next came fences, and fences, I would say, have been, it has been tough for me to regulate fences for a lot of different reasons. Some of the changes that we came up with as a planning commission and me as staff, I think will reflect that. We're having issues with people finding their property pins, whether they hire someone to find the property pins or they find the property pins themselves. One of the issues associated with that is how do we know the property pins are in the right location? We had a situation here in town where a property owner found their pins. They were actually looking at putting in a driveway. They found their pins. It turns out the pins were not in the right place. They were actually in the wrong place. We're not sure how they got in that place. So it's really hard to go off someone finding the property pins. The other issues that we do have is I've had some people who have found their property pins and then constructed the fence somewhere regardless of where the pins were. And so I know people get upset with me at that point, but then it really turns into a neighbor dispute. And so that's been a challenge for us. Another challenge that we have is when you're on a corner lot, trying to figure out the visibility and where the setback should be. So we made some changes to the fence code to go along with these. The first one is, it is unlawful for any person to construct or cause to be constructed a fence over 3 feet in height without a permit. We want to make it very clear that if you're going to put up a fence over 3 feet in height, you have to get a permit. Previously, we asked that all fences be located 18-inch from the property lines. The Planning Commission is removing that information because, as we talked about, a property owner can find their pins, but the pins might be in the wrong spot. So one of the reasons it was erased is just giving the neighbors a chance to work out their issues on where they think the property line is, and then putting the fence there. The applicant for the fence is responsible for establishing property lines by finding their pins or by hiring a surveyor. We took that out because, as I said, unfortunately, without a full survey, they could be wrong. Even if you hired a locator, they could come out and find the pins and they might be wrong. So really, you would be asking someone to find those pins, and it could just be completely irrelevant. Property pins adjacent to the location of the proposed fencing shall be clearly marked for inspection. We're taking that out. As the Planning Commission talked about it, they really felt that it was between the neighbors to work things out and figure out where they thought the property lines were. And most neighbors have been mowing to where they think their property line is regardless. That will allow them to put the fence where they believe their property is. All fences shall be constructed entirely upon the property of the person causing the fence to be constructed. So we're being very clear that if you put up a fence, we don't want it right on the property line. We definitely want it on your side of the property, wherever you think that is. Fences in excess of 3 feet in the front yard are not permitted. So corner lots are considered to have 2 front yards. That will help us figure out the sight line and the visibility. Having a corner lot have 2 front yards, that will definitely make it easier for staff when we go through and approve where fences can go. The next change that we made is actually, if you scroll down to number 9, we did say that fences are allowed to be rebuilt in their current location. I think that was somewhere else in there and we actually moved it. So that was something that is staying in there. If you had a fence and you're just taking it down and rebuilding it, you can go ahead. Or if you maybe had one that was 18 inches in and you want to move it, that's up to you now. But we are allowing fences to be rebuilt if they are somewhat grandfathered in. So that was the majority of the changes that we made to the fence, or to the fence code. I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments on that. Okay, and the next slide, please. So this is the section of the code that we actually had Mr. John Henry speak on. John Henry acquired the Sueur storage in town, and he came to me along with 2 other property owners in town. They're business owners that want to expand their properties. And when we were looking at their properties, we realized that many of them are actually close to the 50% impervious surface. So what that means is if you want to build on your property, we do a measurement to figure out how much impervious you have. So your impervious could be your parking lots, your sidewalks, where your building is, anything that stops that water from going into the groundwater. So we don't allow you right now to go over 50%. So it was interesting when Mr. Henry talked to the Planning Commission because he would like to expand the storage facility, but based on this, that is a struggle for him. One thing that we did point out is Mr. Henry does have a storage pond on his site. So I think there was some confusion from people thinking, well, if you have a storage pond, you can go over the 50%, but based on our code, it does not work that way. And so in our code, in the general business district, the light industrial district, and the general industrial district, you have to meet only 50%. So if you buy a commercial property that, say someone comes in, buys the EDA land on 169, based on this, we would only allow them to utilize 50% of that property. I asked Director Kachira, you know, historically, why have we put these on there? And he and I had a really good talk about trying to retain green space in communities, trying to add curb appeal. I can completely understand that, but I think from the property owner's perspective and from the city's perspective of really trying to be pro-business and pro-growth, I think that looking at modifying these to 75% makes sense. Jasper, if you can go forward one more slide, I want to point out on a map where these areas are. So if you look in the areas that are kind of the salmon color, the pinkish color, the B2, that's our general business district. So right now they're only allowed to build on half of their lot. If we move forward, that would go to 75%. The area that the EDA owns up on 169 is in light purple. It's also down by the airport. So for instance, the lumberyard is also in that district. Right now, they can only build the 50% of their lot. So they would like to go to 75%. If you look in the dark purple areas, there's quite a bit of that out by the airport. There's some of that along adjacent to 169 where Cambria is. Right now, they're in the same boat. They're only allowed to build out to 50% impervious. So if we were to change this, this would allow them to build, obviously more infrastructure. But one thing that we talked about at the Planning Commission level is anyone that disturbs over an acre of soil, they have to have a stormwater management plan. So many of these businesses that we'd be looking at, if they are doing an expansion that disturbs over an acre, they would have to come with us to tell us how they were going to address that anyway. So really from a pro-growth, pro-business standpoint, I think making this change makes sense. If you go back one more slide, Jasper. I'm hoping Director Kachira is on right now and he can talk to us a little bit about how that would affect our rates and our sewer capacity.
Yes, this is Director Kachira. Yeah, so like as Sam stated and as they met, so anything 1 acre and greater does have to have a stormwater management plan. That is by state statute. So many of our stormwater, the city has not completed a stormwater model yet, but many of these would, under 1 acre sizes, would be accommodated in most city stormwater management plans. So as we go forward, yes, we could allow and plan for this, but then with the remaining 25% with proper site work and proper planning, that would alleviate any normal runoff conditions.
Rich, would that have any effect then on the sewer rates that people pay? Because I know right now when people see on their bill that they are assessed for a sewer rate, would this changing the impervious surface maximums, would that change their rate at all?
I personally don't think so. The ratio of property that you're discussing here and that we're looking at overall, I don't think has an overall effect that would increase that dollar amount.
And I guess one of the benefits to them really being able to build out to a larger standard would be us being able to capture a larger tax capacity then. Because on the green space, obviously, you don't get as much tax capacity as you would if there was a building there or an improvement there. So that would, those are the changes that the Planning Commission is requesting that we make. This is the first reading. I don't know if I did notice one typo. We'll fix that before the second reading. Not sure if you had any other changes or thoughts on these changes.
Anybody?
This is Member Mahoney. I think I would just reiterate some of the points that Samantha's already made regarding to some of the concerns from the Planning Commission. One being that they really did not want this to be associated with any increased cost to residential users. With increases already coming, they wanted to make sure that the storm water system could handle this increase in pervious surfaces. Also wanted to make sure that we were having that balance of being business friendly, but also retaining our green space. We are in a rural area and think it's important aesthetically to have that green space available.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Krogman. I see what's on the screen. I would think that if we're ready for a motion, it would be to waive the first reading, not to have it. It'll be here a long time if we have that reading.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I should say waive or perform because I did want to go through and kind of show you the changes. So I guess I apologize if I technically wrote that wrong. I'm not sure the best way to do it, but I did read a majority of it too.
I just didn't want somebody to jump in and make that motion. That's all.
Okay. So the staff recommends we waive the first reading of the zoning code update and scheduling the second reading for April 12, 2021. And with that, we'll open the floor up for any motions.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Krogman. I so move.
Thank you very much.
Second, Swanberg.
Thank you, Councilmember Swanberg. Any other discussions, comments, concerns before we turn it over to Administrator Krugel for a roll? Administrator Krugel?
Thank you. We'll start with Councilmember Krogman.
Aye.
Councilmember Lozey. It appears Councilmember Lozey is offline. Councilmember Mahoney.
Aye.
Councilmember Schleter.
Aye.
Councilmember Swanberg.
Aye.
And Mayor Kirby.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Moving on to regular agenda item 7C, 2021-2022 City Council goals and priorities. We covered a lot of these with our last meeting. And if it's okay with you, Administrator Krugel, if you want to kind of review these goals with us.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Kirby, members of City Council. I'll just give a brief summary and then kind of go over the goals that we've developed. They should be fairly familiar to everybody as we kind of develop them together at the retreat. But at the annual City Council Planning Retreat held on March 1st, 2021, staff facilitated the development of the City Council goals and priorities. We do this generally every year. The goals are linked to our long-term goals that City Council can change. The focus areas which are in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan and the strategies that are in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. So the actual document that was attached in draft form in the packet kind of outlines all of the goals and then attaches them using various letters and Roman numerals and numbers to those three different areas. So making sure that all of our goals are linked to our guiding documents and our council adopted long-term goals. As a refresher, our long-term goals are fiscal responsibility, customer service, and planning for the future. The focus areas in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan are land use, infrastructure, transportation, and parks, recreation, and open space. And then also the strategies from the 2040 Comprehensive Plan are volunteerism and philanthropy, partnerships, official controls, capital improvement plans, economic development and housing, and parks and trails. So you can see a visual of what that document looks like. Once we can start meeting in person, hopefully sometime this summer, this will be displayed if it is adopted in the council chambers. It's also found on our website, or would be found on our website. I'll just go over the goals briefly. There was one request that I believe the electric service area one is the group lead is administration now instead of public services, and that's really just because I'm really the contact person to work that goal with it'd be Minnesota Valley Electric Cooperative. So goal 1 is related to the Future of the City Forum, having that happen in 2020. Goal 2 is that electric service area acquisition. Goal 3 is to establish a volunteer program. Goal 4, and these should be familiar as these are the goals 1 through 6 were on our previous adopted goals for 2020 through 2021. Goal 4 is to adopt a 10-year CIP for the wastewater treatment plant. Goal 5 is to adopt the transportation and utility plans. As you are likely aware, the transportation plan has been adopted by City Council. We're working on the utility plan, which will work its way through the Planning Commission and then up to City Council here, likely at the beginning, the first half of 2021. Goal 6 is a comprehensive housing recruitment strategy. Community Development Director DiMaggio is working on that, and you should see that here shortly too at City Council. Goals 7 through 12 again are new goals that were developed at the retreat with input from City Council and staff. Goal number 7 is to establish that mayor's task force on the Sueur Community Center. We've gotten a lot of great input and interest into that, and we should have that task force established here in the next week or so. I'm going to put in quite a bit of time tomorrow to really get it dialed in. Goal number 8 is to develop land. This is kind of a partnership goal with the EDA, but to develop that business park on top of the hill. We're pretty close to getting that area platted and then marketing it and applying for grants to get some of the infrastructure done is all part of that plan. Goal number 9 is the electric utility cost of service study. You've gotten a taste of that, and we will have a personnel and budget committee meeting here probably in April. I need to coordinate that to go over those findings just to start that process of that electric cost of service study and those different account types and really talk that over with personnel and budget. Goal number 10 is to establish a parks fundraising campaign. That's associated with that park plan priority list or park project priority list. That's a mouthful. And really going after a fundraising for that, and really we prioritize items, and you approved an item on consent agenda tonight related to that. Really trying to get some grant money for those projects. Goal 11 is the Independent School District regular meeting. So it's a goal that would basically establish a protocol to meet with the school district regularly with the defined agenda to align community goals and communications with the school district. That's going to be more important than ever with a new superintendent starting here this summer. And then goal number 12 is to coordinate a celebration event to commemorate the reopening of Main Street. So Main Street, we opened bids for that here, I think on April 1st. And then at that April 12th meeting, there will be a recommendation at that time. But really to really commemorate that opening, because that's a huge part of our comprehensive plan, the opening of Main Street, the downtown master plan. So really celebrating that event. So those are the 12 goals that we've come up with. The last couple, 11 and 12, are ones that I built based on the input from City Council. Again, that electric service area acquisition goal, that would the only change would be that I'm now the administration is the lead on that project for the staff lead. So And then that's an extra slide there. What we're looking for tonight is a motion to approve the 2021-2022 City Council goals and staff priorities. What that means is that basically we'll make those slight adjustments to the document you received in your packet, and we'll make sure that the adopted date is correct, and then we can put that on our website and start marketing it. And really what that does is it provides a roadmap for people to understand what our goals are for the next couple of years and what projects that we'll be working on and priorities that we have as a community to achieve over time. So it's really good at pointing, or a tool to point people to help them understand what we're doing in the community. So with that, I'll entertain any questions you may have about the goals. Hopefully it's nothing surprising since we went over it, but I will entertain any questions.
This is Member Schleter. Quick correction on goal number 1. Just wanted to make sure you had the correct year in there.
Oh, yep, I see that now. Thank you very much. It's now 2021. That was a previous goal. We were going to try to do it in 2020, but the pandemic kind of had other plans for us. So no, I made that change right now. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns or comments regarding those goals? It's a pretty healthy goal list we have there, but it's about the same number of goals we had the last year, and we've added a couple, as Administrator Krugel mentioned. I'll entertain any comments before we move on to the action request. If there aren't any, I entertain any motions to approve the 2021-2022 City Council goals and staff priorities.
So moved. Swanberg.
Thank you, Councilmember Swanberg. Do we have a second?
Schleter, second.
Thank you, Councilmember Schleter. With that, I will ask for any other comments, concerns, remarks. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Administrator Krugel for a roll.
Thank you. Councilmember Krogman.
Aye.
Councilmember Lozey, I'll try and see if he's available. Councilmember Mahoney.
Aye.
Councilmember Schleter.
Aye.
Councilmember Swanberg.
Aye.
And Mayor Kirby.
Aye.
All right, motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 7D, tiller and main update. Administrator Krugel.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kirby, members of council. We do have an update and just receiving a few questions about what all the activity is at the mall right now. I asked Community Development Director DiMaggio, who's really spearheaded this and worked with the EDA on this project, to just provide an update to City Council, just to kind of get everybody up to speed as far as what's going on, share a few pictures of what it looks like on the inside, and just kind of entertain any questions if there are any from City Council. So this is a non-action item, agenda item, so there's no action requested. It's just for information only. So I'll turn it over to Community Development Director DiMaggio to kind of give an update on what's going on at the mall.
Thank you, Jasper. You can see again, I have a public hearing and it's not a public hearing, so I apologize for the confusion. This is just a general update. I actually thought I would go through a little bit of history because I know we do have some newer council members. I think everyone in town has probably been following the project, but I just wanted to kind of start from the beginning. As part of our comprehensive plan, they really heard from members of the community and their desire to redevelop the mall and reconnect Main Street. The city then hired HKGI, the same group who did our comprehensive plan, to do a study of this area, and they came up with some redevelopment scenarios for the mall. This was a really interesting situation as a new staff person who was coming in at this time, and I think even maybe for Jasper and for other members, because the city does not and did not own the mall. And that was owned by private people, and it still is owned by private business owners. And I think in a sense, we were very fortunate that the business owners that did own the mall at the time, they really were open to working with us and looking for some redevelopment scenarios. They wanted to sell the mall and they were willing to work with the city. So we did come up with 3 redevelopment scenarios, and we used those scenarios to market the mall to potential redevelopers and developers. Building Good Downtowns LLC, the first time they saw the mall, they had great interest, and within days, actually, they were ready to move forward redeveloping the property. One thing that we did talk to them about is we were kind of going back and forth is the city of Le Sueur, the EDA, was owed $396,000. They had asked us if we would be interested in giving them a waiver of that. So that was definitely something to talk about. And we also kind of went back to them and said, well, you know, we're probably interested in doing something like that if you can give us back the right of way that we need for Main Street. So they said that they were willing to definitely move forward with these discussions with us. And so the EDA applied to DEED, which is the Department of Employment and Economic Development, for a redevelopment grant. And they were awarded $856,000. And it's interesting, when you go to DEED and apply for these grants, it has to be project ready. So we had to have a developer. If we wouldn't have had a developer who was ready to move forward with us, they would not have considered our application. So it was really amazing timing. We had applied once before with Brennan Construction, and we were not awarded, but Brennan was actually awarded for his project in Mankato. And so after that award, you know, he no longer had interest in moving forward, but he did make the connections between staff and Building Good Downtowns, and I appreciate him doing that. As part of applying for the redevelopment grant, it is a 50% match. So DEED is willing to come with that $856,000, but the city had to have 50% of that match ourselves. So you're going to see in a little bit how we're financing our 50%. Anything above that 50% match. So if it costs more to build the road than that amount, then that's the city's responsibility. So next slide, please. So the total redevelopment cost when we applied in January of 2020, so this is pre-COVID, this is me just kind of meeting the gentleman from Building Good Downtowns, working with Corey and Jasper and Rich and myself, just trying to come up with some numbers. So there were some changes. The initial estimates that we came in at were about 5.8, almost $5.9 million. We're now estimating that to be a little higher. We're a little bit closer to 6.5. Some of the things that have changed is we actually did complete a real life design for Main Street, which you have all approved, and we do go out for bidding, I believe, on April 1st. So we'll go through and I'll talk a little bit about where we thought we were at and maybe where some changes came in. The land acquisition, that $421,000 is the EDA's $396,000, the portion that they were willing to forgive. DEED does consider that as part of our match. And then the city of Le Sueur, as part of this, to pay for the rest of the right-of-way, we will have to come up with about $25,000. The demolition did come in right at $300,000. DEED is paying for that portion of it. The new facade, we did work with the developer, and they came up with this cost of about $728,000. I actually think it's going to cost more than that, but the TIF that we awarded was very close to that amount. So they're basically, the TIF that they get is going to help them pay for the facade. The EDA did also award them $300,000 to put in towards that facade. But as I said, I think that number is actually going to turn out to be low. I think it's going to cost them more to do the facade than what that estimate was. The utilities, the electric, the stormwater, the sanitary, and the water main, that's about $640,000. DEED is going to pay $300,000 of that, and the city of Le Sueur will have to pay the remaining. The interior construction at the time came in at about $3,250,000. I actually think that's low as well. The last time I spoke with the developer, he thought it would be closer to $5 million. I know he's making some cuts trying to cut that back, but obviously the cost of construction is very, very high right now. And then the Main Street reconstruction, we're at about 1.164. DEED will pay the remaining $294,000, and then the city of Le Sueur will bond for our portion of that. So it's about, you know, all in, I think Jasper's probably planning on bonding about 1.2 million, but I guess we'll have to see what the estimates come in, and I'm really hoping that they come in at a good rate, but fingers crossed, especially based on how the water tower came in, but we'll definitely see. Does anyone have any questions about kind of how we broke down these costs? And like I said, we had to come up with some numbers for DEED, and these were some of the best numbers that we had at the time. Okay, next slide, please. think I'm missing some pages, Jasper. Are they in a different order? These are some pictures of what it looks like now. I guess we'll roll with it. This is inside the mall. I did get to go in last week to take a look at it. You can see all the steel walls and everything is coming up inside there. If you look straight through, you can actually see some windows. When you're inside there now, you can actually look across the street and see the furniture store, which is very fun to have some windows on the exterior of the mall. If you look on the right-hand side, that is where the old staircase was. So that's the opening of the mall, and you can see they're starting to put in the second level of the mall, or so on that second level, there'll be apartments. So a new stairwell will come back in its place, and then they will have the second level. If you go to the next page, there's more of that second level that's being put in. They're actually going to keep the existing ceiling from that open area, and that will be the ceiling for the new apartments upstairs. And then on the right-hand side, you look at some of these pictures and you kind of think, what is that? That used to be the area where the medical clinic was. It's actually all opened up now, and you can see the entire area. They will start putting apartments in that area as they move forward. It was amazing to go inside there. Before, when all the walls were up, I'm not sure how many of you were actually in there when it was a clinic. It felt like it had such a long hallway and there were so many little rooms, and seeing it all open, it wasn't quite as big as I remembered it to be, but it was great to see it all opened. And they've really done some amazing stuff, and they're working right now on the interior, as you can see, in a little bit of the exterior. So lots going on. They're going to start moving those second floor tenants down to the main level. Next slide, please. Excellent. So the city and the developer are going to be tracking the total project costs. In the end, we have to bring these costs back to deed and let them know how much their funds leveraged in our redevelopment. Obviously, this is crucial, especially right now as budgets are tough in the state of Minnesota. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I actually testified to the House about how important this program is. I have sent letters to Senator Pratt and Senator Draheim expressing that this is really a game changer for our community, and I hope that the state of Minnesota really continues with this program. Because of the funds that we got, we are hoping to retain 22 new jobs. So as part of all this, the city actually entered into what's called a development agreement with Building Good Downtowns. And so this development agreement was dated June 30th, 2020. And it kind of has, if you do this, we'll do this type scenario. So the EDA did agree to forgive the $400,000 note that was issued on Valley Green Square. So unfortunately, the people who were interested in buying it, they were not interested in paying back that note. They didn't feel that the building had the value for what the bank was owed and what the city was owed. So the bank did get their full amount back. Their note was fully satisfied. Unfortunately, the EDA did not get their amount back, but we did do some figuring, and through time and with the interest only payments, I think we were very close to almost recouping all of it. So I don't think it was a complete loss for us, but as Jasper said, this was very high on the list for the community of redeveloping it, and so I think the EDA knew that. Also, the developer agreed to acquire the mall and to remodel it and to put up to 14 apartments on the second level. I actually think it's going to be closer to 17 apartments when they're all done, but they did promise to do at least 14 of them. With this, they agreed to spend the $700,000 in remodeling the property. And as I said, the estimated cost, last time I talked to him, he said a number closer to $5 million, but I know for sure it's over $3,500,000. So once this is all done, then the EDA will give them a forgivable facade loan for $300,000 to mirror some of the money that they are putting in the outside of the facade. Next slide, please. So the developer, it was kind of an interesting discussion that Jasper and I initially had with them, because, you know, as soon as they acquire a building, we were basically asking them to tear down some of the building that they just bought. But they did understand that based on forgiving the $400,000 and giving us back that right away, that we were kind of exchanging different things that were a priority to both of us. And we just really felt that having Main Street open would also help the mall be of more value down the road. So we were looking at potentially having the city demolish the front portion of the mall, the west side. As we started looking for different contractors or different people to help us, we realized it was best to have the developer pay those costs and that we would then pay them back for it, because we almost came to the assumption that whoever takes it apart should put it back together. And so if we were to try to hire someone different than them, it just was kind of a little bit crazy. So we ended up going forward with the $325,000 for the right of way. And then that also gave $300,000 towards the demolition costs, which I actually think in the end, it probably cost them a little bit over that, but we do have the receipts for $300,000. So the city agreed as part of that development agreement that we're going to spend at least $1.2 million reconstructing Main Street. And you can see from the numbers that we looked at earlier on, it's definitely going to cost us more than that by the time we put in the utilities. But we did promise them that we would at least spend that. The parking lot on the east side of the mall was sold to that developer for $1. This also kind of went back with us getting control of the right of way we needed. The developer is going to use this parking lot for at least 2 years. If after 2 years they realize that they have more parking than they need, then they can either utilize or sell the parking lot. The sale of the parking lot will put it back on the tax roll, and that parking lot has quite a maintenance cost associated with it. So this last year, the new owners actually, even though they didn't own it, they did take care of maintaining it this last winter, which I appreciate. But I know that they do plan on making some changes to the parking lot, and I think it's going to make it look a lot nicer. As I said, the city of Sueur did give a 20-year tax increment financing. This equates to about $22,472 a year. If for some reason the taxes come in at a higher amount, those funds will be used to pay down the developer. Once the developer is paid off, then the EDA can, we could repay them for some of the facade funds, or we could use some of the money to help with the bond for Main Street. So it was set up that if there are extra funds associated with it, that we can use it for other things, that other costs incurred by the city. Next slide, please. So they were issued, the mall was issued a demolition permit on October 22nd, and they did get a building permit on February 5th. On February 22nd, the Economic Development Authority did issue 4 loans from the revolving loan fund. They went to Anderson Orthodontics, Hamig Dental, Moots Eye Care, and Bennett Pharmaceuticals. So in all, about $800,000 in low interest and partially forgivable loans were given out from the EDA. The west side of the building, as you can tell, has been demolished. They are starting to reconstruct now. You can see the areas, especially the other day when I was in there, I could see Dr. Hamig's area. They were getting ready to cut out more of his side windows. They're working on getting new tenants in the mall. I believe that they already have some leases signed. I know that Dr. Anderson, Hamig, Moots, and Bennett Pharmaceuticals have all signed their leases, and I know that there are other people who have as well. The city and Building Good Downtowns, we plan to transfer that right away for the parking lot before the end of the month. I'm actually hoping it will happen this week. But lots of stuff happening, and I think overall it looks amazing. I'm not sure if you have any more questions. It was a lot of information.
It was.
Yeah.
I've got a quick question, Director DiMaggio. You said there's going to be about 15 to 17 living units upstairs in the new facility.
Yeah.
Do you know how many like professional units there will be down low, such as dental offices and stores or whatever?
Yep, so all of the main level then will hopefully be those type of retail shopping areas. They do have Bennett Pharmaceuticals is a new one, that probably a new name that you haven't seen yet. Mr. Jim Mulvihill is starting Bennett Pharmaceuticals. They're a compounding pharmacy, and they have leased some of the area in the mall. There are some other people in there, but I am going to wait a little bit and let the mall owners tell you their story and tell you who they've leased to, because it's pretty exciting news, and I want them to be able to share it when the tenants are ready and when they're ready. But the entire main floor then basically will turn into spaces for people to rent, and housing will be on the second floor.
Okay. Councilmember Krogman, did you have a question? It looked like I interrupted you.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was curious about Bennett Pharmaceuticals. I wasn't sure what that was.
Yeah, they are a compounding pharmacy. I'm sorry, Councilmember Krogman.
Oh, you're fine. Thank you.
Yep, so they are a compounding pharmacy. They are in the process of just getting their startup and working with the USDA and other groups that they have to work with. So it'll be exciting that they're coming in on the main level. And as I said, I know there's some other tenants as well that have been contacting me looking for potential financing. And unfortunately, the EDA is definitely getting low on their financing, but we do have some great partners with the Southern Minnesota Initiative, with Region 9, with the Small Business Development Center. So definitely using all of our partners as well.
Administrator Krugel, real quick question. You said, well, I think Director DiMaggio mentioned we'll probably bond for that, our portion of what we're going to owe, which is probably going to be over that $1 million mark. When will we have to take this bond out, and for how long will it be, and what type of interest would you forecast?
Yeah, good questions. We do open up bids for this project on April 1st, so we will know more. As far as the interest rates go, we're looking at probably right around that 1.6%. That's a conservative estimate, I hope. Our financial consultant, Shannon Sweeney, generally is always high with these estimates. For example, the CASA 22 project, I think he had it at 1.5%, and it came in at 1.26. So I'm hoping we see some numbers of that nature when we do go out and bond for this. And we're looking at a 15-year term. So all of our street projects, we try to do at a 15-year term. So 15-year term at 1.6% interest for about $1 million is what we're looking at when you take into account the deed grant that we've received.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Director DiMaggio, I appreciate your presentation. We appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to seeing this project when it's all done.
I agree. If anyone does want a tour in advance, please let me know. I'm sure that we can work on something, but they've been very busy and lots of construction crews coming in and out. So I was able to go in on a scheduled visit with the building official, which is where we got some of the pictures from, but I can keep sending some updates as well if that helps.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you. Moving on to item number 7E, organizational structure update. Administrator Krugel, if you want to take us through that, please. Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mayor Kirby, members of City Council. Tonight we're going to talk about the organizational structure of the City of Sueur. In particular, the Public Works division, and then also and how that's related to the Recreation division. So the City of Sueur currently has 2 vacancies in the Public Works division. It's that manager position and the supervisor position. We've done an internal review of operations within that division, really looking at budget considerations, so making sure that the adopted budget won't be affected by any changes and being conscious of that. But what we're really looking for is to improve efficiencies within the department. And I'll go into detail about kind of the intricacies of the way things work right now related to that Public Works group and the Recreation group, and how they're kind of intermingled, and how there's some things that are occurring right now that I think we're trying to fix with some of these proposed changes. The Personnel Budget Committee met on March 15, 2021. The City Administrator was present, that's me. The Finance Director, Joe Roby, and then the Public Services Director, Rich Cachero, were there. Really try to get that core group of individuals, really the Public Services Director. All of these divisions fall underneath that Public Services department, and then really getting the Finance Director up to speed as far as the way that the operations are working. So I'll kind of dive in a little bit with the current operations that we have occurring right now. So this is what was occurring previously and what we're proposing to change. The current operations have about 1 FTE, so that's 2,080 hours of that Public Works operator group doing time at the community, Sueur Community Center. So what that basically comes down to is that 8 hours a day, every day, 5 days a week, somebody's working from that Public Works group over at the community center, doing various maintenance tasks, cleaning, There's some painting things, just kind of that nature of items that we have, and that's worked out, and that's been going on for some time. As you can imagine, there's some logistic things that I think can be improved on, and that's what we're hoping to achieve here. The recreation manager supervises all the part-time and seasonal staff other than the office assistants. So the office assistants at the community center are supervised by the recreation technician. This is where some of the efficiencies, I believe, can be gained. So right now, work orders from the community center go from that recreation manager, and then it goes to the public works operator, and then potentially to the public works supervisor, and then it's assigned to those public works operators to come over. So if there's something of an immediate need, we got a water leak or there's a spill or something like that, that's kind of the chain of command and chain of communication that we currently have. And just as a reminder, that current public works operator group, we have 4 individuals in that group. We did have 5. We did have one leave at the end of 2020. And just as a note, we were planning to expand that group to 6 in 2020, but we ended up not doing that. It was related to a budget constraint that we wanted to try to achieve at that time when that 2020 budget was adopted. So that group right now currently is 4 public works operators. Going through kind of the organizational structure, the current organizational structure, and the budget that we have. So the current adopted budget with the public works manager, public works supervisor, and public works operators has the following breakdown between the general fund, which is 101. That's our fund number, and the recreation fund, which is 615. So as you can see, currently what we've have budgeted in 2021 is just under $482,000 for the general fund, and this is just that public works group, and then just over $99,000 for 615. So that kind of relates to that 2,080 or that 1 FTE for that 615 fund that's coming over from the public works group. So on the right-hand side, you can see the current organizational structure, and you can see how the recreation manager has a bunch of part-time and seasonal individuals, and then the rec technician reporting directly to them. And then the public works manager has the public works supervisor, and then the 4 operators, and then the seasonal summer and the seasonal winter workers. There should be kind of a squiggly, maybe dashed line between the public works supervisor and the public works operators, as that person also supervises those 4 individuals. So that again, just as a reminder, that's what we're currently operating under, and that's what our adopted organizational structure looks like right now. Looking at what the proposed organizational structure, and I think at the Personnel and Budget Committee meeting, Mayor Kirby kind of made the observation, well, really what we're doing is we're just moving that public works supervisor into a recreation maintenance supervisor position over at the rec department. And really what that's doing is streamlining a few of the efficiencies and operations over there related to the work that's happening. And in turn, those public works operators now, with the proposal, would not be working over at the community center as regularly. There would still be some things that maybe there's an emergency or something where they would be working over there, but they wouldn't be scheduled at 8 hours a day that they're supposed to be, or that they're budgeted for working over there. So what we're looking at doing is adding this position, recreation maintenance supervisor, and really what that looks at is really it's a person that's dedicated to that facility over that the community center is. Right now, what's occurring is that our current facility manager, Andy Semensky, is over there along with all the other buildings and performing the facility maintenance items. And really what this person would do is this person would take over the community center maintenance and then the outdoor pool. Those would be really the core areas that person would really be assigned to. On top of that, there would also be some redundancy and learning, and I'll call it succession planning for that facility manager position, just to have an additional support person to help out with that. And really that's important because there's a lot of different buildings that facility manager knows a lot of very intricate details about, and they're literally the only person that knows these things. And it would be good and it would be wise in our opinion to get somebody to start to understand those things, kind of, again, succession planning. Looking at the finances of what's being proposed, it's essentially, I will call it a wash. And there's an assumption in here that I'll talk a little bit more about. But really, the 101 or the general fund will see an impact of a little under $1,000 a year, and this will be fully realized in 2022. As you know, by the time this person, if approved, would be hired, we would already be about 5 months through the year. So you would fully realize these for 2022 numbers. And then the 615, and this is with the assumption of hiring that recreation maintenance supervisor position at around $80,000 plus benefits, and that falls within that grade 11 of our comp and class plan as a supervisor. And that goes, I believe it goes from, I'm going off memory now, just under $70,000 up to 86,000. So this would be above the median level, but I want to make sure that it's what we're planning for is feasible, because ideally we get a candidate, if approved again, that can do a lot of this work. Now, if we have somebody that comes in and we think has great potential but needs a lot of training, they're going to come in at a much lower wage at first, but an ideal candidate, I feel, would come in, and we want to be able to be clear and transparent as far as what that person would cost as far as the salary goes. And this would be a salaried position, an exempt employee that wouldn't be hourly as well. So as you can see on the right, the proposed organizational structure changes up a little bit here. That public works manager no longer would have a supervisor. You know, I've heard some comments about public works, that division being potentially a little top heavy. Just a reminder that supervisor position was a working supervisor position, and the intent of that position was that they were out in the field working and doing very similar things to the public works operators. So they would be losing that position, and then those public works operators would be assigned and directed by that public works manager. The recreation division group, you would have that recreation technician still assigned to supervising those part-time rec office assistants. But then the rec maintenance supervisor would then be the direct supervisor for the seasonal Zamboni driver and all of the part-time building and maintenance, or building and ground maintenance folks. So another about a little over 1 FTE would be assigned to that person. And then the rec manager would then supervise the indoor and outdoor pool lifeguards, very significant amount of hours there, especially for the outdoor pool. And then the part-time fitness instructors that you see at the fitness facility. So you can see there's a change here and really a shift. And I would say the righting of the ship, because right now, under the current structure that we have, you know, we have that supervisor position and the public works operators really doing a lot of the work in the rec department. So there's a lot of mingling between those two divisions, and this would kind of streamline it on both sides, and really have those public works operators working on just the streets and the parks aspect of the community. So the proposed organizational structure will have a net impact to the general fund, assuming that rec maintenance supervisor would be hired at that $80,000 per year, of just over $1,600 per year. You know, that would be fully realized in 2022. The RMS, the rec maintenance supervisor position, would also serve as the backup to the facility and airport manager, again, succession planning. The RMS position would allow the rec manager to coordinate, market, and promote the community center by realigning supervisory duties. And really what that is taking over some of those building and ground maintenance part-time positions and that Zamboni driver. We estimate that'll open up probably around 10%, maybe 15% more time to really kind of focus on that marketing and promotion of the community center. Which I think is a goal, you know, and I think we'll likely see something of that nature come from our task force, our community center task force, talking about marketing and promoting the community center a little differently than we've done in the past. And I've heard that from some council members as well. The RMS position will streamline the community center maintenance, as all operations will happen in the rec division versus the public works division. So, really having everything under that umbrella of the rec division instead of it kind of crossing over to that public works division. The RMS position will transition to take over the outdoor pool and all of the community center maintenance from the facility and airport manager. Again, that succession planning. And I'll go a little bit into timeline of this if that's, I'll go into timeline as far as if this is approved. And then the Personnel and Budget Committee, when we were talking with this, recommended to approve the proposed updates. So looking at that group, and I know there's probably some questions from people that aren't in that group, and I'm definitely here to help provide the information if there are questions about this proposed change. Talking a little bit about the timeline, there are some key dates if we do want to pursue this. Really, the opening of the outdoor pool is kind of a goal to get somebody in here by, so that they can follow the opening procedures of that outdoor pool. It is quite extensive. It takes a few days to get it prepped and ready to go for the summer, and it is quite intensive. So that's one of the kind of, I'll call them a soft goal. Now, don't feel obligated by any of these things because this is a major decision to reorg. It always is whenever we do any reorganization of our organizational structure. So don't think that it's not, but we did talk about that at the Personnel and Budget Committee. Realistically, if all would go right, this would be approved. We could potentially get somebody in here around Memorial Day, right around when we're looking at potentially opening the pool. Just as a note, the outdoor pool is proposed to be open that Friday after Memorial Day, so I believe that's June 4th this year. So likely that week leading up to it and that week of Memorial Day will be pretty involved with getting that pool prepared and ready to be open. So I know a lot of information to digest. There are a couple options here tonight as far as the requested action. The requested action is to consider a motion to approve the recommended organizational structure updates and direct staff to post the positions and bring forward potential hires to City Council. If there's more information that's needed before a decision can be made to move forward, definitely we can table this item and we can gather some more information if there are. I ask if there is information that you would like. Definitely, let me know so I can do the research and find out, maybe a different way of looking at this. So with that, I'll entertain any questions. It's all up to City Council as far as how we proceed, and I'll go from there. So if there are any questions, please let me know.
I'll make the first quick comment, Administrator Krugel. I like your succession planning. I know we've got a lot of staff that we know aren't going to be there forever, and we've had a lot of changes in staff in just the last several months, and it's been a lot to keep up with a lot of us. And I think some of us are still trying to understand how the dynamics work with your staff and who answers to who and who goes where. I want to ask you if we were to maybe have another personnel and budget meeting before the April 12th meeting, and if we could maybe ask a few more questions there as far as the personnel and budget committee, and then bring it back to the council on April 12th. Do you have confidence that you'll be able to find somebody before Memorial Day if that's the direction we go?
Likely not. So I can go a little bit into the timeline, and don't let that deter. If there's a required personnel and budget committee, I'm all for that, right? But as far as posting the position goes, I'd like to do a minimum of a 3-week post. I think that gives us enough time to market it and get it out to the various posting agencies that we use, and gives people enough time to apply. If we would cut that time down a little bit, I think we would maybe lose a little opportunity of being able to market appropriately. And I'll be honest, this position isn't gonna, the rec maintenance, or actually both of them, aren't going to be the easiest positions to fill. So, you know, I do my personal marketing, and I go out to people and ask people I know about, you know, maybe some potential candidates in the area that might want to apply. So, you know, that all takes a little bit of time, and at the end of the day, you know, it deserves the time that it needs to do that. But I won't, you know, if that's the direction, if we want to go back and have a personnel and budget committee meeting, it's the process that we'll follow, and I'm supportive of it. So, but I don't think that we could follow that process if we had a meeting, let's say next week. We would likely, you know, it'd be postponed, and that position would be filled until, you know, maybe June or July, mid-June or July.
How about posting your street department manager? I mean, if we were to you know, vote on that tonight, but just hold off on the rec department manager.
That'd be just fine by me. You know, I think right now both of the positions are really needed. You know, we're down 2 positions, and that's quite a bit. And again, that supervisor position was a working position. So, you know, if you can imagine now, those public works operators, those 4 individuals are now making up for that time. You know, now hopefully we're not going to get any more snow, but snow removal, the last couple events was pretty challenging, and really, you know, the facility manager has stepped up, and they're now in that role of kind of an interim public works manager as well. And that's quite taxing. So any sort of movement, I think, if it's agreeable to city council, if it's just that public works manager, would be helpful. Really, it's an hours kind of, I won't call it a problem, but it's a challenge to really cover the hours that are required to keep that level of service the same that I think the expectations are.
So you'd really, in a perfect world, would like to have this new rec manager be able to kind of shadow Mr. Szymanski around when we go to open this pool, and that'd probably be pretty advantageous to him, would it not? The new manager?
I would say definitely. So, you know, really to fully train in, and this is kind of the same scenario as with the finance director, is there's certain things that only happen once a year. So really, you're probably looking at, in order to get trained in and to even know what they're doing, you're talking probably 1.5 to 2 years to really kind of get things to a point where they can do them on their own. You know, if they do them 1 or 2 times with the assistance of the facility manager. So really, you know, you would potentially just have, you know, an additional season with the outdoor pool needed to really get that rec maintenance supervisor up to speed, if that's the path that we decide to go down.
And if we did move forward with this action tonight, Administrator Krugel, there's no guarantees you're maybe going to find that right person, is there not?
That is correct. So it's my job to bring forward a viable candidate. So if we don't get any viable candidates, you know, there won't be anybody hired. We've been fairly lucky as far as getting good candidates the last few jobs we posted, because, you know, a lot of times, I think looking back to 2018 when we were hiring some managers and some directors, and in a lot of cases we were just you know, one good candidate. You know, if we wouldn't have been able to secure that one good candidate, we would have went out and we would have posted again. So I don't know what, you know, the job market's a little different. I don't think we don't know what to expect right now. But there, you know, we have ideas. I think we know people. We can market the position to try to get a viable candidate, but there's nothing we can do to guarantee that we're going to get them to apply. So it will be a challenge. Both positions will
be. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead, Leah.
Oh, thanks. Did you look at scenarios where the recreation maintenance was not a supervisor position? And if the cost benefits there would be doable with the increased supervisory actions for the recreation manager?
We did, if I may answer that. So we did look at that, and really what we're trying to pair when we're looking at this position is what we feel a viable candidate will need to make to be able to do the work that we want them to do or require them to do. And we're trying to look, because there's some maybe a potential water operator or something from another community. Really, it's got to fall within that ballpark. And I think anything less than that supervisor position, I don't think we'll get any candidates that could fall in and do that work, because there's a lot of licensures that are required for this position: boilers license, certified pool operator licenses, things like that take some time and to acquire. So we looked at it. We thought, well, geez, is this an opportunity to bring somebody in like a technician or something? Because generally speaking, our hierarchy is a director, manager, supervisor, and then a technician. To bring somebody in like that, and really, talking with the facility manager, what somebody that is maybe in the private sector or in even the public sector right now falling into that pay range, very unlikely that we would get somebody that would be able to perform the work. So we looked at it, and that's kind of the assessment that we came up with internally as far as that goes, and it's really related to that pay range.
Councilmember Swanberg, did you have a comment or a question?
My comment and question was very similar. I don't know if I'm ready to make the leap here, and I guess I need to do a better job of figure out what these titles mean. The complaint I get from people is we've got too many supervisors, and now we're going to replace 2 with 2. And I'm going to have to do a better job of being able to explain that to folks.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Yeah, I know, and that's
I really think that there's improvement by removing a supervisor who's not supervising anyone. So I think that's an improvement.
Yeah, and Councilmember Swanberg, feel free, if you want to give me a call, I'll sit down with you and kind of go over some of these things. I'd be happy to, really talk about what we have right now, what our current organizational structure is, and what we're proposed to do, and kind of, what those supervisor position duties are. And generally speaking, we have a supervisor in the water wastewater department, and that's a working supervisor. So that person's out in the field every day, helping with locates, filling in, so it's kind of like an operator, but they supervise and they give direction to the other individuals. I maybe almost parallel it with, maybe you're familiar with a lead operator or something like that. But these are non-union positions, and that's kind of, we call them supervisors, make them non-exempt so that they're not union positions, and technically a union position can't supervise another employee. Once you get into that supervisory level, then they're non-union positions, because that's not allowed for our collective bargaining agreement. So I'd be more than happy to reach out and connect with you to kind of go over some of those little nuances that we have, and maybe go over a few job descriptions and things like that.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? If not, I don't know how to proceed from here. I'm going to need a little guidance from anybody that wants to add anything, or Administrator Krugel. I would feel more comfortable if I just had a little more time to absorb this a little bit. I don't know how the rest of the council feels. I think Councilmember Swanberg's on my page. Councilmember Krogman, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we don't want to parcel this out, in my opinion. I think it's, we need to look at it as an overall plan to make sure things run correctly. I think we have to pay due deference to our city administrator and other staff members who developed this plan. They are responsible for administering the city. There's a fine line between micromanaging and our role. We do not want to micromanage, but yet we have a very significant role in determining staffing. So I'm inclined to say, as risky as it is, that I think we should table this, wait till our next meeting, maybe have a special meeting just for this before our next regular meeting, But in the meantime, also have personnel and budget revisit it one more time and give council members a chance to ask any questions or get input that they need.
Councilmember Mahoney, anything else you want to share as far as how you feel about proceeding ahead?
Yeah, I guess my sentiments are similar to Councilmember Krogman and Swanberg. Just maybe want to observe it a little bit further, receive a little bit more information, and maybe hear about how some of those different scenarios play out.
And Councilmember Schleter, anything you want to add?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion that we table this until the next meeting. That takes us 3 weeks out from now, but I would hope we could have another personnel and budget meeting before then. Get a little more information, maybe understand the subject matter just a little more, and then bring it to the council at our April 12th meeting. I know that kind of puts you in a pinch, Administrator Krugel, but I just don't want to have any buyer's remorse with this, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, no worries. We'll go through the process. It's all up to city council. So we'll make it work. We'll figure it out.
I do like the planning you put together here. I do like the ideas. Like I said, I just want to kind of get a feel from the public on how this is, whether it's going to create problems. I want to kind of get a feel from the rest of the council on what they think, and then I think we can move ahead with this with the right planning, and the right information.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Krogman. Just a point of order. I believe you did move to table it, is that correct?
I did.
Okay,
So
we have
I'll
not
ask
had a
for a
second.
motion for that. You'll second that?
I think you made the motion. I'm asking
I
if
did.
move to a second if we're going to go forward.
Okay, do we have anybody who'd like to second my motion of tabling this until the April 2nd meeting, or April 12th meeting?
I think you got it from Newell.
No, you did not. I was
Oh, my
pointing at
apologies.
order. To be clear, I'm not voting one or another. I'm just saying I didn't do that.
Can we get somebody to second the motion or change the motion if that's what they wish to do?
I'll second Mahoney.
Thank you, Councilmember Mahoney. We've got it. We've had a motion to table this until the April 12th meeting. It's been seconded by Councilmember Mahoney. I'll turn it over to Administrator Krugel. Take the roll.
Mayor
Again,
Kirby, Councilman Swanberg,
Yeah.
just some discussion here.
Yes, I'm
I
sorry.
think Councilmember Krogman brings up, a very valid point, and I don't want to get into the habit or business of micromanaging our administrators. They've obviously put some time and thought into this. Is there any way we could speed this up and have a special meeting before the 3-week time period to help with the posting? I kind of want my cake and eat it too.
Administrator Krugel, you want to help us with this?
Yeah, I mean, we can have a special meeting whenever we want. We just need to have 3 days notice to follow open meeting law. So, and same goes with the personnel and budget. So the earliest we could ever have a personnel and budget committee meeting, I think technically would be Friday of this month. And then, or Friday of this week. And then if there would be another meeting, we could notice preemptively a city council meeting on the 29th. Or something like that. So, I mean, we could, but we are subject to open meeting law and making sure that we notice the meetings appropriately.
Mr.
And
Mayor,
to be clear, I would look at the special meeting just being for this one item only.
Thank you.
we also have that first Monday in April possibly, would we not? Or is there something conflicting?
I don't believe there is. I don't have the full schedule, but generally speaking, Mondays are fairly open. There might be a school board meeting that night. I'm not entirely sure. From my perspective, you know, I'm going to favor getting it done sooner than later. So if we want to do it, we could do it that way, but we could do the April 5th meeting as well, you know, the April 5th, and then have the Personnel and Budget Committee meeting the week of the 29th. We can do that as well.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Krogman.
Yes,
There's all
sir.
kinds of ways to maneuver this, but could the motion somehow be changed to indicate that we would meet, not meeting just until April 12th, but that we, if possible, take it up on either the 29th or did you say the 5th, Jasper? I can't remember the date.
Yep, those are the 2 Mondays. The next 2 Mondays are March 29th and then April 5th.
I frankly think it would be better to set a date now. Just pick one of those dates and say that we're going to table it until then, and Personnel and Budget will meet in the meantime. With one other caution, we have to be very careful as a council. We're all interested in this. We all have opinions, but we need to keep the open meeting law very much in focus because we could fall into some quick traps talking to each other. So I'll just leave it at that.
Absolutely. Okay, with that said, then, Administrator Kruger, could we have a quick, very short Personnel and Budget meeting on Friday morning? Is that too soon?
Sorry, Mayor Kirby, you cut out right when you said the date. So if you could repeat yourself, that'd be great.
So I'm looking at Personnel and Budget meeting Friday morning, the 26th.
I think we could maneuver that. If it works for everybody else, I'll have to check in with Councilmember Sullivan.
And then we could have a special meeting on April 5th, on just this regular item right here, 7E.
Mr. Mayor,
Or could we have that,
that
or
would
could we
be
have that council meeting sooner?
Yeah, the reason for the.
Could we have it sooner with
Go ahead.
Administrator Krugel? If we have that meeting on Friday, the 29th with Personnel and Budget, could we have our city council special meeting on this one item? How soon could we have it after that?
So I think if we're looking at doing a Personnel and Budget Committee meeting on this Friday, the 26th, we could notice a meeting for the 29th, which is Monday, the Monday after that. So, and I would notice that on likely Thursday, the 25th, anticipating that the Personnel and Budget will meet. But I would notice the Personnel and Budget meeting tomorrow morning, so that we can get that out there. So I think that would be the best case scenario is, a Personnel and Budget Committee meeting on Friday, and then if we need more time after that, then we can meet again. But I'll preemptively schedule the City Council meeting for the 29th.
Okay, your only issue is whether Councilmember Sullivan could be available on Friday. We don't know that, and you're getting yourself into a bind otherwise. So.
Yep, and I'll reach out to him in the morning, and I can figure that out. And if that changes, I'll let the group know that it changed. So hopefully, with being able to meet remotely, we can make it work. But I know Councilmember Sullivan does have a work schedule that he sometimes works during the day, so we might have to be flexible with the time with the other members.
Very good. So with that, we'll change the motion to table this until a special meeting on March 29th, which is Monday. We'll make it 6:30, and it'll be covering just this one item of organizational structure update. Did I say that right, Newell?
You did. You just need to get your person that seconded to agree, which I don't think will be an issue.
Do we have anybody who'd like to second that?
I think that Councilmember Mahoney seconded the first time, so she'd be the one to change it.
Mahoney will second.
Forgive me for playing parliamentarian. That's not my role.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Council Member Mahoney. And I want to reiterate, this is just this one item, so this will not be a long meeting. I just want everybody to have their opportunity to kind of visit with whomever they may visit with through the week and bring it to the council next week. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Administrator Krugel.
Thank you, Mayor Kirby. We'll go Council Member Krogman.
Aye.
Council Member Lozey. Council Member Mahoney.
Aye.
Council Member Schleter.
Aye.
Council Member Swanberg.
Aye.
And Mayor Kirby.
Aye.
All right, motion passes 5-0. I'll get that information out probably tomorrow morning. You'll see something after I talk to Council Member Sullivan. So thank you.
Thank you. Last item of the night is our comments, reports, items of appreciation. So with that, I will start with Council Member Krogman. If you have anything you'd like to share with the council and with the community, this is your platform.
I'll make it very quick. The MMPA, our electrical service provider, actually our wholesale provider, working with the city, is going to place an electrical station downtown for charging electric vehicles. I just want to simply report that progress is being made on that, and that the MMPA, the Minnesota Municipal Power Agency, is working with our city staff to be able to accomplish that. We'll know more in the near future. That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Lozey, you still with us? I think we've lost him. We'll move on to Councilmember Mahoney.
I don't have any tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Schleter.
No meetings since the last council meeting. The HRA meeting that was originally scheduled for last week has been rescheduled to this Wednesday, and the new appointment that I have for the Sueur government officials meeting is going to be a week from Wednesday.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Sullivan is gone. Councilmember Swanberg, anything you want to share with us tonight?
Nope, just again, congratulations to Fireman of the Year, Aaron Meyer. Nice job, well done. EDA meeting today, we did agree on another lease for some farmland to the Kiwats. But other than that, nothing else.
Thank you. Thank you. I have nothing to share tonight. I do have a hospital board meeting coming up in April. Our hospital board meetings do not meet every month anymore, just the finance directors get together. We meet about once every other month now, just because of the structural changes we've been going through with Ridgeview. So with that, that's all I have, and I'll turn over to Administrator Krugel. Anything else you want to add?
No, we have a MMPA meeting tomorrow that Newell and I believe will both be attending. Other than that, we're just moving along. There's a lot of building activity that I think is going to be happening in 2021 here in the city, and we're just kind of coordinating those things right now. So a lot of exciting things happening, but that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Looking forward to hearing from you, Administrator Krugel. I'll talk to you, Newell, on Friday. We'll discuss some times tomorrow for the Friday meeting, and of course I'll see all of you on Monday with that very short meeting we'll have on Monday. So with that, I'll entertain, we'll just take a vote. All those in favor of...
Mayor Kirby, before we sign out, if we meet on the 29th, it'll be at 6:30.
I'm assuming so.
Okay.
Can we go earlier if you want?
That's fine. I just wanted to be sure.
6:30. All right, 6:30 next Monday night. Be very short.
And with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for attending tonight, and we'll talk to you Monday.